time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show.
Hi, folks. I'm Sam Lesante, and I got Ned Dougherty back with me with part 2. If you recall, we talked about the visions or that he had in the Flashlight of this book, Flashlight to Heaven. Incidentally, if you didn't get this book, I highly advise you getting the book, and also his new DVD, The Dome of Deception, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. The New World Order, folks. If you recall, the last time we did the show, we said we challenged you to send us emails, whatever questions you may have. And Ned, we did receive some, okay? We received a lot of phone calls. A lot of people, some people probably don't have computers, but a lot of people called and confused a little bit about this New World Order, what it means. And here's the question I get all: what are you trying to accomplish by this show, okay? But we did get a lot of interesting emails. But this one interesting email we got, where this guy is saying, let me just read one part of it. It's a lengthy email, but folks, here's what he said. He said, the first thing that both Sam Lesante and Ned Dougherty must learn is to analyze the source of their information. Ned Dougherty is an admitted former drug user who spent most of his formative years and middle-aged years having servants serve him cocaine on silver platters. He made money from illicit activities and admittedly broke the laws of our land, which brings us into question why he is given the red carpet treatment by Sam Lesante and Hazleton business families as they welcome him back into the Hazleton community. Given that he spent the most valuable years of his life under a mind-altering illegal drug-induced state, it is far to conclude that he is not the best source of information and analyst on how stuff works. Both Ned Dougherty and Sam Lesante should question the ability of Ned Dougherty to accurately and effectively analyze anything, especially something as complex as how stuff works. And he proceeds to tell us in here that, maybe these drugs, as we discussed many times, screwed you up in your head and you don't know what you're talking about, okay? And that I'm giving you the red carpet service. But I'll address some of that at the end of the thing. And I appreciate, he signed his name, folks, and I appreciate that very much. How do you react to that?
Well, Sam, I did read this email, rather lengthy and quite intelligently written, and this is a boilerplate response, particularly to be given by the very people that feel vulnerable when this New World Order is attacked. First of all, I take exception to the fact that I was involved in illicit activity, giving the impression perhaps that I was illegally involved in selling drugs. That is not the case. I happen to be what I would still describe as a casual or social user of cocaine. But if that is the reason to attack my credibility, then perhaps we would have to eliminate recent George Bush as President of the United States because he was an alcoholic in his background and also recovering like me. We would also have to eliminate the credibility of President Clinton as well as our current President Barack Obama, who admittedly also used drugs. As a matter of fact, I think it'd be quite difficult to find many of us who in our teenage years were in the 60s or 70s who didn't at one time or another be involved at some time or at some point in this activity. But having said that, Sam, obviously what changed my life were two very spiritual experiences back in 1984 that reprogrammed my thinking and my thought perception, if you will. And since then, I have been sober now for 25 years. So much of the learning and knowledge that I've obtained in the last 25 years has been in a very sober and clear-minded state. But having said that, let's go back to those times back when I was involved in a champagne cocaine world. I was in the Hamptons and in Palm Beach and in New York City. And I moved in the highest social circles with people who were involved in politics, who were the CEOs of multinational corporations, who were the bankers and the financiers. And I got to spend time with those people at 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. And I got to see the dark side of the very people that we think of as our global world leaders, as our financiers and our bankers. So yes, I do have a colorful background, if you will. But if it wasn't for that background, perhaps I wouldn't have the perception that I do now, to understand how the world truly works, as opposed to the way that we're misled to believe that it works. Now, one statement that was made in this email admitted that, well, it appears that the world is owned or controlled by financiers or people with great power, but the same email says, well, the world really isn't that organized. Well, quite to the contrary, we can see now that it is quite organized. Sam, you know, you could get up at the crack of dawn now and turn on CNBC, and you're finding out what is happening in finance and in the markets all the way around the world. 24/7, we know what's going on. We have the technology now to hear everything that's reported in the financial world. What that technology doesn't give us, though, is access to the private meetings and the private groups of people who have the power and control over the financing and the resources of the world, because those meetings take place behind closed doors.
The question then is that the gentleman is questioning the fact that there isn't any really conspiracy going on here, that it's rather lengthy, and I like I said, he signed his name, and I appreciate that. But you talk about this New World Order, and you mentioned David Rockefeller. There's a name that's very powerful. The family names are very powerful. We do have a couple other emails which I'll read. People who believe that it is going on. But let's talk about one of the things that to go back to the New World Order, and why are you picking on David Rockefeller? You have something in one of your newsletters, and folks, I want to, while we're talking about this, most of you are asking how you get more information from Ned. Well, we'll put up the DVDs right after he responds to this. I don't want to confuse the issue here. The New World Order revealed, do you know this man? What we talked about David Rockefeller. Why are you specifically, addressing him?
Well, say, how could I pick on David Rockefeller, who's with all of his power and money control, and from a very famous and influential family? I can only respond to that in terms of my experiences over time and my understanding. And when you talk about conspiracies, the facts do not lend themselves to a conspiracy. The facts lend themselves to the truth. The conspiracy, perhaps, really is when you get emails like this that try to disprove what is the truth. Now, in terms of David Rockefeller and his relationship to the New World Order, I am not conspiring to conclude that David Rockefeller is one of the global leaders in charge of the New World Order. I will quote David Rockefeller himself from his own memoirs that were in his book by David Rockefeller called Memoirs, and this is to quote David Rockefeller. For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents to attack the Rockefeller family for the inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interest of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that is the charge, I stand guilty and I am proud of it. End of quote from David Rockefeller. Now, the engine or means in the United States of America through which David Rockefeller and his elite global associates operate is the Council on Foreign Relations, with offices in New York City and satellite offices in Chicago and Washington, D.C.
For you who want to get some information, the Dome of Deception, Fast Lane to Heaven, the DVD, Heaven Help Us, and of course, you can get these monthly End Times Journal and as well as the newsletters, folks. They're up on the screen now, and you can go to Fastlane to heaven.com. That's .com, or missionofangels.org. We'll be back with Ned Dougherty right after this.